Okay, everyone, it is another warm day outside, but have no fear, because things in here are looking pretty damn cool. Alright, so today we are reviewing Oberon, the leader of the Hindra nation in Final Fantasy Brave Exvius War of the Visions, incredibly long title, the game. Based on the movie. No, it's not based on the movie. But anyway, today we're going to be taking a look at this character. We're going to be giving some impressions of what we think about him, about the good things, the bad things, the things we're worried about. And all of this, of course, is a little bit early because we don't effectively know how good Oberon is yet. I think that, always with these characters, we have to see how their AI performs and well, maybe some whales already got him at 120, but that's not me. Anyway, taking a look at Oberon, let's first of all talk about his limit burst, because that was one of the things that interested me the most about Oberon when we first saw him. His limit burst is absolutely gorgeous to behold, and let's just show it off. Let's show off the animation real quick here. Very, very cool looking limit burst. So we'll run it a few more times. But anyway, this decreases all elemental resistance for the targets for 3 turns. It is an AoE effect. And it does have a 200% modifier. So it is a, as all limit burst deals a really good amount of damage. It's 48 AP. We do have a little bit more of the complete picture now because all of the elemental resistance is getting decreased as 20%. Pretty much kind of what I thought it would be. I was a little hopeful for 30, but that would have been, I think, probably too strong overall. He's just has a really strong limit burst, and as you can see, good range on this limit burst, but I mean, it supports just a wide variety of parties. It even supports the idea of just spear damage on a team and not necessarily needing to be concerned about the elements, because this is a good leader kind of ability of essentially allowing a whole bunch of other characters to do what they are going to do. So yeah, I think that this limit burst is pretty damn awesome. Now let's talk about excuse me, the TMR. Now the TMR is a piece of armor, 449 HP, 8 defense, 8 spirit, 10 critical rate. So a pretty good all-around in terms of its stats. I don't think it excels at anything, but it is going to boost his stats in a good direction for, to be resilient against a lot of different types of damage for a TMR, essentially. But, as always, it is the skill that makes the TMR, and this TMR is one of a kind, and I assume is going to be a brand new wave in TMR power creep. It is a single cast use 24 TP, but what this does, it nullifies haste for all enemies, decreases their critical rate by 20 for 2 turns, and increases his own attack for 3 turns by 40%. By any stretch of the imagination, this TMR is pretty damn nuts, and you could probably see why I would recommend getting it. This is the first field effect TMR that I can recall, but I'm pretty damn sure on it. Essentially, the nullification of haste, it has pretty big implications for PvP. Remur, as well as Titus, as well as a lot of teams really do use those haste buffs at the beginning of the battle to leverage it, but this essentially cancels that. Not only that, but it decreases critical rate, something that has been a little bit more popular since Cloud has been around, but obviously Titus uses it. A lot of characters rely on criticals for getting special abilities to work. And removing, at least lowering the chances of critical for a couple of turns, along with, maybe some critical avoidance and whatnot, this might make the enemies just a little bit too difficult for a reliable strategy, and it may push people away from using critical as a crutch. But yeah, this TMR is really good, and the only question I have at this point is how quick is the AI to pop this? If the AI is very smart and waits for haste to be cast, That's essentially what we're looking for here. If Oberon or whoever is using this piece of armor, it is restricted to or I think it's restricted to Dragoons, but I'm not 100% sure. Actually, don't quote me on that. Let's just say that that's not. I don't have it available, so I can't test. But whoever is going to use this, provided that they wait for haste to be cast, you're essentially nullifying a turn from your enemies or just canceling out their haste. It's just good enough to be run permanently. This is probably one of the strongest TMRs in the game, and one that I would really cannot wait to get my hands on and test and see how good it actually is. Oberon also has really strong, he has, the 3 move and 4 jump, so terrain is not going to be a big issue, but for other reasons too, as we get into his kit. And before I started doing this review, I didn't actually check this, so we're just gonna we're in hope mode here that going to properly. It's not. I'm still in Gumi jail apparently, so we're just gonna have to scooch over to my copy of the character. We're not gonna get a full extent of what he can look like, but approximately 90 speed was on the friend unit when combined with my party, as well as about 1400 attack and HP about 6,000. I think defense was approximately 28 with his equipment, so pretty darn nice. We'll take a look at his resistance. As you can see here, this is what you are looking at for base resistances. So 10% against slash, 5% against pierce, 15% against shooting, 0% against fists, so Tifa and 2B can potentially be a problem, but I mean, this guy's got his weakness right here, and it's very clear, and Velouche, or, how do I want to say this? Velouche or Howlet are his natural counter, as well as any future Wind Mage. Gargus there, I mentioned him, Dario. There are counters to him, but I would like to remind again that one of the things I think is strong about Oberon is, for instance, if you were to pair him off with Victoria, you essentially don't lose anything. You don't need to be mono element with this guy. He will still boost other elemental damage and help other units. Good quality of a leader, so I really do like it. Looking at this, he also has some resistance against some specific status effects stop, as well as that's Doom? No, I think it's stun, right? I think that's labeled wrong. Anyway, and a little bit of paralyzed resistance. Generally, I'd say those resistances are in a good place. Just having that resistance to stop is potentially really good. Not 100%, but we don't expect it to be 100. But yeah, alright, so that's enough about his stats and everything. Let's get into his skills. And skill-wise, we'll just zoom out, kind of show it off. I guess it's a little small. Nodes into his EX are HP. You're going to notice some more attack, some more defense throughout his kit. Speed is also available, so pretty good stat-wise. He's very focused towards offense and a physical defense. He is not focused towards magic at all, and that is his primary weakness, so you may want to run him as well with some kind of magic tank. God, a magic spear tank sounds great right about now. Anyway, taking a look at his 3 jobs, we'll start with the lowest one, Nightblade, which essentially has damage abilities. It has the pierce resistance and missile resistance buff for 25%, which is fairly nice. Again, it boosts that for himself and for allies, so that might just be a good enough thing to run. Especially in PvP, where missile resistance is generally pretty good. Still, I feel like on the JP side, that's a good buff for him and others. I think that's good. He also has the stun ability. He has the absorb HP, and he has increased slash attack and defense penetration. Again, you could potentially run him with a sword team. Don't know if you necessarily want to do that, since his spear stuff, as we're going to get to eventually, is pretty good. But, AP drain is potentially good, and maybe you just run that and the resistance ability, because it's just good enough. But Nightblade, not quite as big of a deal as I thought it was going to be. Continuing on to Viking, which is one of the classes that I think some people always wonder, well, why is this even in the game? Well, I think Viking is still fairly good. He has the increased defense while decreasing evasion for also an increase in attack boost ability, which is good for an offensive character while also giving him some more defense. He has piercing damage on his Viking ability, so if you were to use him with a slash team, you can get a little bit of a bonus there. He can increase his own bravery for a bit, or increase his own bravery, I should say, as well as he has the damage with critical chance. But I think, if I'm correct, this last one here, this should be, nope, off. This one, yeah. This one might be good enough just because it does have human killer on it. Might just be strong enough to be run. But all of that, I'm not convinced about either of his secondary and third tertiary jobs, just because they don't feel like they really feel that strong. And you may just want to be running his primary kit because his primary kit is so good. What you're essentially losing are these two abilities right here. First one, a move and jump up for 3 turns, so increased mobility is pretty good, allows him to navigate through difficult terrain, and some of those do exist for guild maps, so that is powerful. But his second one, 165% AoE modifier, or 165 modifier AoE damage for 38 AP. That is also giving you a decrease in earth resistance. Not bad. Again, these two abilities are questionable, but I'm not sure if you really... It really depends what content you're running for what job you want in that sub-job part. Continuing on, though, his main job has... It's essentially, taking a look at it, more of a Lancer class than it is a Dragoon, but it does have a Dragoon ability, which is interesting, and you should know that before we get into it. So taking a look, he has piercing damage with critical that also has a chance to stop. This ability is upgraded, I do believe, into his EX. I just want to... Yeah, there it is. But it is a pretty strong ability. It was already pretty strong. It gets a little bit of a range increase. As you can see, initially it's only 2, but it goes up to 3 in a row, and piercing damage on it, but just the chance to, even a 25% chance to cause stop. Stop is just a powerful status effect and can be pretty detrimental to me. Alright, moving on, next up, this one is also pretty good. Increase critical evasion for 30 for 3 turns for allies. So again, another buff for himself as well as others, and an increased AoE resistance for 3 turns. It's by 15 and critical evasion is by 30. I think both of those stats are fine enough to be recommendable. It's a nice little buff at the start of battle. And then we get into the really, really cool abilities, the ones that I think are very, very good. So this one's a little bit concerning. We'll just get this out of the way. It is a reduced damage taken 50% when maxed out for 3 times for himself. He has 2 uses of this, so that's a fair amount of attacks to essentially reduce the damage off of it. But as you can see, it does have casting time. And as a Dragoon, and looking at his jobs, he just doesn't have any way to reduce this to 0. So it could get him in trouble. You essentially want this ability to proc very quickly in battle, because if not, well, he might just be getting hit before his barrier goes off, and then you're not getting anything out of it. So that is a big blind spot in his kit. Alright, we're going to zoom back in because I need to find specific abilities. This one is his jump ability that I was talking about. 3 uses, 24 AP, not bad at all. 185 modifier with a decrease of pierce resistance by 25% for 3 turns. Just a nice ability. It has a less casting time than his chant ability, but you are still getting a good reduction for spears as well as just dealing damage. There is something else to talk about this, but we're going to save it just for a little bit because it's pretty exciting. This one is his large sweeping AoE. It does have a 25% chance to inflict stun for a single turn, and it is a 165 modifier. It is 3 uses, it is 2 hits as well. So he does have he actually does have a little bit of chaining in his kit. Not a ton, and Earth I don't think relies on it that much, but at 32 AP, you're getting good value here. This just gives a really good chance of potentially just sweeping the enemy a couple of times, not maybe stunning all of them in it. So yeah, kind of nice. Oh yeah, one more thing. I need to go back to an ability because this ability also gets a improvement into his EX. Not only reduces damage, but also increases his own pierce attack by 25 for 3 turns. So the getting him into his EX is very, very, very important. And his last ability, I think we've covered everything. This is the one. 200% modifier, lightning killer by 25 and 100% hit chance. So here's your cloud killer. Here's your lightning elemental unit killer. This ability is very powerful. I mean, any lightning unit will have difficulty against this, but can't be evaded. Just gonna get that sure hit on it, and very, very nice ability to be sure, and a welcome one. All right, and so what's the last things to talk about? Well, his counters, pretty standard stuff. What you expect for Nightblade: chance to counter damage, and Viking, chance to counter damage with an increase in HP and 25% chance to inflict Berserk. Don't think you're going to be running either of those abilities because you're going to be wanting to run this. His counter ability for Dragoon, or his special Dragoon class, right here. Sorry, a piece of the carpet was weird feeling for a second there. 20% chance to counter piercing damage and 121% absorb HP is just pretty good. Do always like that little bit of HP siphon. In terms of his support skills, for Nightblade, he ended up getting the increased attack and increased accuracy while decreasing his own evasion rate. He's not an evasion character anyway, so that's no love lost at all. From there, we get into his Viking, which has the HP and attack increase, and his other support is the missile increase. But I don't think you're going to be running either of those because these two are just so damn good and saving the best for last. So this one is an attack and defense penetration, 24% increase in attack and defense penetration by 40. Very good. I mean, not as much defense penetration as Cloud, but probably enough with the piercing resist down and whatnot, and the spear that we're also going to have to talk about. This is just enough attack, but this ability is just the coolest thing ever. Upgrades his Dragoon ability and increase an acquired AP by 40 for himself. Very good in making him a little bit more self-reliable. Maybe doesn't necessarily need to be running bells. May even be able to run his own TMR and be fine in a lot of fights depending on his damage. But that upgrade does make his best ability, his Dragoon ability, into a homing ability. So even if the unit now moves, doesn't matter. This guy is going to hit it 100%. This is the upgrade that Dragoons needed, and this is the upgrade that I want Kane to see. I want every Dragoon in the future to have, because this is just so amazing. I really love this ability. It's one of my favorites. It's so much fun that this ability has gotten this kind of increase. So yeah, going back out, talking about Oberon, he does have a problem with magic users, but you might be able to just it may not just be an issue, because essentially he can support a wide range of characters and potentially compare with Victoria, who could keep him safe from wind-based units. And Victoria has proven to be very good on the JP side with her status effects and her EX now. It is just pretty darn strong. So yeah, Victoria seems like potentially a good partner for him. Excellent. And the chant on his protection ability is a little concerning, but it's not the longest cast time. It's just one of those things that you might want to play around with the AI and what abilities his AI has accessible, because that will essentially allow him to target the survivability stuff if you want that more. But you're going to essentially want to think about what abilities he has access to. But high performance, good durability on this unit. He has lots of ways of making sure that he will survive, as well as protecting other units. He can enable a lot of different other elements with his limit burst. The homing jump, as I'm going to call it, is just the best thing for Dragoons, and I want to see it on every Dragoon in the future, because otherwise it's not just going to be good enough. But other than that, I mean, his spear abilities just look pretty strong, with some good damage output that he can do, but also has access to strong status effects such as stun and stop, and both of those can be accessible. Stun a little bit easier, stop you need to get him into his 120, but the TMR as well is just pretty freaking nuts. Just an AoE effect is new and exciting, and really only with testing will we find out how truly good it is. And the last thing, we're just going to talk here about this new spear, which was added to the game with Oberon. And from the Wotv calc data, looks like you're either going to be running Assault or Critical. Critical only has 117 attack, so that might not be worth it. You might just want to go with the Assault version, which has 147 attack. But at 5 or +5 with 5-star, it gets an increase of Earth attack by 30, and if I'm reading this correctly, it gets another Earth attack increase by 15, so 45 total if that data is right. I only remember seeing earlier that it was essentially 30, so I'm not 100% sure, but that's what Wotv calc seems to say. I think it's 30 total, but because 45 just doesn't seem right. And increase pierce attack by 15. So yeah, it's essentially, you know, like some of the other spears we've seen, very focused on not necessarily the highest attack, but good support for the element that they are supporting. And there you go, Eileen also got a spear, so Eileen gets a little bit of improvement. But yeah, Oberon is definitely a really strong character, and I think he looks way cooler with Kane's spear, but you want to be running the stats on the Earth spear. But yeah, this unit's very strong, very powerful, and a resurgent for spears and Dragoons alike. But this guy's a leader for sure. Anyway, so if you enjoyed the video, thanks for watching, and yeah, I'll see you in the next video when we review someone else. Take care.